We got Jason here today from the Osmosis Support Lab. What's going on there in terms of like you have people who, let's say, want to swap between different tokens, or you have liquidity providers.
It's quite large. So it's like a mesh network, like the internet. And that's why Cosmos is called the internet of blockchains.
I forgot to compliment you on your Osmosis swag you're wearing there. So. All right, thank you for tuning into the Teach Me DeFi podcast for another episode. Today, we will talk all things DeFi and automated market makers. Excited to dive into that topic. And we got Jason here today from the Osmosis Support Lab. So we'll be talking about Osmosis. Hi, Jason. Thank you for being here, mate.
Hi. How are you?
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, let's take it from here. Let's start with easy questions as usual. Just for people who are not that aware of Osmosis and of Cosmos, maybe even, can you just like give us a high-level overview of Osmosis, you know, its mission within the Cosmos ecosystem, perhaps also what Cosmos is in that context as well?
Sure. So Osmosis is an app chain built using the Cosmos SDK. And its primary purpose is to be the interchain DEX in the Cosmos ecosystem and beyond. Cosmos itself is a network of blockchains, of layer 1 blockchains, and they have been built with the same SDK at the core level. So they all inherit very similar modules. The most important one being IBC, the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol, which allows chains to connect together, just like computers on the internet, and they can transfer data between one another. And for example, you can issue tokens on one and lock them on one of the chains, send it to the recipient chain, and they can be used on that chain. So Osmosis is the at the forefront. It's the first marketplace DEX trading platform on the Cosmos ecosystem.
All right. So basically, yeah, it's a network of decentralized blockchains, of decentralized networks, and within Cosmos, and they can communicate with each other. You can transfer tokens, coins amongst them, and things like that. Is it?
Yes, you could transfer tokens and coins, but it's not just for tokens and coins. IBC is a general information forwarding. So the fact that you can lock and send tokens, that's just one of the use cases at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's generally some similarities there between Cosmos and Polkadot with a multi-chain sort of approach. Interesting to hear. So you mentioned you're the first DEX, was it, on Cosmos, but you're also your own blockchain. Is that true?
Yes. So how that happened is on the Cosmos, in the Cosmos ecosystem, there can be a bit of confusion with the name Cosmos because the first instance of a Cosmos chain is called the Cosmos Hub. And back when that started, and a few of these other blockchains started, like Osmosis, before IBC module was actually activated, these blockchains were not connected at all. And only once it was activated, obviously then could Osmosis be relevant. And it was started in 2021, June of 2021. It's been around for over 2 years now. And there's been a bit of ups and downs, with at one point, our only stable coin was Terra UST, and we all know how that went. And due to the nature of how things were operating at the time, having only that one stable coin, it really affected some of the other tokens' values. It kind of like dragged them down. It's just bad timing, but as things are going now, we've got a whole bunch more stable coins on our platform, USD, Circle, USDC, Tether, from multiple bridges, and also natively through other Cosmos chains, such as Noble USDC, which is actually natively issued from Circle, as well as Carver US tethered on Carver Network, which is also on the Cosmos chain. A lot of people don't realize this about this ecosystem that we're in, is that the focus is so much on development and not so much on marketing that it's gone under the radar. And when people find out that, hey, a lot of these chains are actually built from the same SDK, and they have this ability to interoperate with sending of tokens. A lot of projects are actually coming to Cosmos because of this. We have DYDX, Celestia. If you look back in history, even Binance's, not their smart chain, but their BEP2 chain.
Yeah.
That was also a fork of early Cosmos.
Okay. Right. And okay, and that's interesting. And then so how, let's say if well, we will dive into the specifics where you show us how the platform works and you share your screen. So I'm looking forward to that. But before we get into that, what are sort of the participants in the Osmos ecosystem? Can you just run us through what's going on there in terms of like you have people who, let's say, want to swap between different tokens, or you have liquidity providers, perhaps also the governance aspect of your chain?
Great. So yes, we have different participants. The main core of Osmosis is to be a liquidity provider for the ecosystem, right? So you've got to accommodate traders, you've got to accommodate people that are willing to put their funds into liquidity, and you've got to incentivize it in some way. And then you've also got your governance as a proof of stake chain. So you have staking on our network, which helps secure the chain, and it helps users who are staking to earn an APR, which is actually higher than the inflation. I'll talk about that in a minute. But there's a net positive yield for staking. For traders, we've kind of revolutionized a few of the pools. So traditionally, you'll have, like, say, Uniswap has got their balancer type of pool, and then they've got the V3 concentrated liquidity. That's something we've also adapted, and we've slightly improved upon that. To make it easier for people that are participating in the LPing. And I'll give an example of that later, and also how it's been performing over the last 3 days.
Sweet.
Really exciting.
Okay.
But it's for end users, you've got the normal swapping of tokens. So Osmosis itself doesn't create everything. This is the beauty of it. We've got smart contracts extensibility. So there's permissioned CosmWasm, which is the language used within Cosmos, which stands for, well, it's two words, Cosmos and WASM, WebAssembly. And basically, if there's a really good project that comes along and says, hey, we got something that might interest the Osmosis ecosystem, they can put a proposal up on our blockchain to say, this is our smart contract. What is the community? What does everyone think? Can it be included? Can we upload our source code? Can it be run on the network? If it gets approved, great. Then they can create their own front end and interact with that. So this is, I think, one of the focuses at the moment for the Osmosis team is to extend that network. And they have been doing so over the last 2 years. We've got perpetual contracts, the futures. We've got lending and borrowing. We've got some other kind of automation processes, so like auto compounding, vaults for like your optimizing of your yield farms. And it just keeps growing. And as like at the moment with the bear market, everyone's just been building, and now we see like a lot of attention coming again with this user, this bull run.
Okay. And maybe I misunderstood that one. What was it that people can suggest in terms of smart contracts? Was that about like having a new token added to the DEX or to the chain, or was it about extending the smart contract functionalities of the exchange itself?
Previously, any extension of the Osmosis DEX as far as functionality goes would have to be through a chain upgrade. However, since they've launched and integrated the Cosmos-Ökosystem module, anyone is able to create smart contract to extend any functionality upon Osmosis. However, not anyone could just upload it and it'll be live. It has to go through the governance process. So typically what a group would do is they would join our forum and they would say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we want to do. And part of our governance process for anything on the chain, not just for smart contracts, is to have like a 5-day period in which everyone can see and ask questions and participate that way. And once everyone's happy, I mean, this gives an opportunity to projects, almost like a political leader. It is about to be voted in. They can change their tune a bit and change their promises. And they show the code, it's approved. Then they create the proposal on the blockchain. And that has a process. And once that gets yes vote and it passes, then immediately it'll be included on the blockchain. And that contract can then be interacted with.
Okay, interesting. I have some experience with on-chain governance in the Polkadot ecosystem. That sounds similar conceptually right now. So in terms of that voting process, is that all on-chain, and is the execution of the enactment of the decision as well automatic on-chain, or is that, because if you recall, there is certain governance systems which fine, they vote on something, but the enactment is not automatic, like included in the chain's logic itself. So technically, let's say a centralized group still makes the decision at the end to actually implement it. What does that look like on Osmosis, the governance in that regard?
Right. So when it comes to our proposals, we have different types. We have just a plain text one, which is almost like they use it as a signaling proposal to say, hey, this is our intentions. And then later on, they can refer back and say, hey, this passed, everyone was in agreement with this. So therefore, this next proposal is about implementing some changes, maybe as part of a chain upgrade. Then you get proposals which actually have code, which gets executed. And these type of proposals can be anything from sending from our community pool to fund something specific, or it can be doing a swap of 2 assets. It can be uploading a smart contract. So these type of things, the Osmosis governance is actually a module that's been built within the Cosmos SDK. So all Cosmos chains have the same governance at its core. And the beauty of Cosmos governance is that it is more important than the other modules. It can override parameters within the other modules. And but there is the risk that, it has to be decentralized. The people that vote, it has to be, you can't have like one big validator who's got like 50% of the voting power. So another thing that we try to encourage is like our validator set, I believe it's 150 validators. And they spread quite well, the voting power.
All right, so it is on-chain voting and it is token weighted, so token-based voting. But I think what I can hear is the validators themselves, they vote with their tokens.
So I can elaborate a bit on that. So users like myself, I can stake with any of the validators. I can stake with one, I can stake across a few. Yeah. And I can then place my own votes as an individual, much like somebody voting in a country for a local ward representative in your little area. However, if I don't vote, the validator that I've delegated to, they have that voting power
Right.
if it's not used. So they can then. So that's why it's important to choose who you delegate to. Do they have the interests of the ecosystem and of the community in mind?
Right. Right. So you have the option to vote yourself with your own tokens.
Yes.
But if you don't, then the validator that you have staked your tokens to receive the rewards, right? Like staking them. Yeah. That validator can then decide what to do with your tokens in terms of voting.
Yes. And hopefully they do vote. Most of them do.
Okay. Interesting. All right. I think I took this in a bit of a technical direction or a bit of a nitty-gritty direction here. Let's bring it back to Osmosis, the platform, and what perhaps is most interesting for the users. How about we do some screen sharing? You show us the actual thing, what's going on there, and we take it from there. And while you're setting up, I forgot to compliment you on your Osmosis swag you're wearing there. So just to mention that one as well. Very good. I'll be expecting a pullover in the mail soon as well. Thank you. All right, you got this set up already, eh?
For the sake of a demo, I've created a new Chrome instance, and I've actually called it Osmosis Demo 3 days old. So I've created it 3 days ago, and we'll get to that in a second. One that's important. So, for users who want to check everything out themselves, they can go to osmosis.zone, and they can find all the links there to launch the app, as well as our socials, which will be at the bottom. Our Telegram group and our Discord and everything else. If I may, I want to just give a quick visual representation of the ecosystem and the network connection. So our block explorer, our main one, is called MintScan. And this is one of the visualizations. So this is Osmosis and the main connected chains to Osmosis via IBC. If I just go back, you can see the extent of the full ecosystem. It's quite large. So it's like a mesh network, like the internet, and that's why Cosmos is called the Internet of Blockchains.
Right. This is a super interesting way to visualize it. That's really, really cool. So this is showing all the IBC connections between the different Cosmos chains?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And you can see in the last 2 weeks, there's been about over 250 transfers to and from Osmosis, totaling about $200 million in the last 2 weeks. And the next visualization is just to show part of maybe the consensus and the block times. So here we have 61 of our chains on the Cosmos ecosystem. Here's Osmosis. And each one of these blocks differs in length. And that is because every chain in the Cosmos ecosystem can decide how long that block time will be. And Osmosis has got kind of a middle ground. It's about 5 to 7 seconds for a transaction to be approved on the chain. And let me just expand one of these blocks, one of the fat ones here. We can actually see how many transactions are inside. So this one has got 36 transactions. And I can show you the block details. I'll take a second to come out.
That's super cool, the visualization. So I assume the thickness of the bar means how many transactions are in there or how much data?
Yeah, so on MintScan, it gives us an overview, few and many transactions, and then obviously the length of the duration of the transactions. So this one here is Osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a pretty cool visualization.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Can you show us again the that internet style, the mesh of networks visualization? And can you see, so transfers volume, do you know if that's the sum of ingoing and outgoing transfers for a given chain, or is that can you even filter for ingoing versus?
Yes. Let's have a look. I'm not sure the time frame. I think this is also 14 days. That looks about right. Yes, it's 14 days. So there's been 35,000 receives and 194,000 sends.
All right. Yeah, that's super interesting. That way you can kind of, like, anyone can quickly have a look at the amount of liquidity that's pouring into a chain or that's pouring out. Yeah.
If you navigate from the launch app, it will open up this Osmosis Dex screen. And when you get started, actually, let me pull that up for a second. This is a new profile without anything installed. You'll see Connect Wallet. And if you want to trade on Osmosis, the first thing you've actually got to do is get a wallet. And we've got a few varieties. We've got the main one in the ecosystem is called Kepler Wallet. We also support Leap Wallet, Cosmos Station, which is created by MintScan, our block explorer, and XDeFi. And there are snaps coming with MetaMask too.
Okay, that's good. For the people that don't know what that is, you'll be able to use MetaMask for Osmosis as well then. Yeah.
Right. So when you install Kepler, I'm not going to go through the details. We've all set up wallets before. It's pretty straightforward. You add it to Chrome. This is a web extension wallet. And you can, when you create a wallet, you can, let me just get this. You can import an existing wallet. So if you have, say, a ledger, or you have a seed phrase that you're using maybe in MetaMask, you could also use it in Kepler. There's also a Google option, but I wouldn't recommend this because if you lose access to Google, you might have some problems. So we always recommend use a recovery phrase or private key for hardware wallet.
Yeah.
That is the self-custody hardware wallet. I mean, this is all self-custody, but hardware wallets, you air-gapped.
Yeah.
Does. Now I'm going to flip back to the 3-day-old account. We have on the left here the main features of Osmosis. We have swap, we have assets, and on this page you can deposit and withdraw. It's like your account, view of your account. You can search for specific assets. So let's say Celestia. And then if I want to deposit, first thing it'll do is any website that interacts with Kepler Wallet, you just have to approve a connection. This just gives the website access to view your balance, nothing else.
Okay.
In this case, I don't have any tier balance, but I can give you an example with maybe a swap. A very similar process. I have some Osmo. And Osmo, by the way, you can, the thing that confuses users, I think, the most is within the UX, is that, which is why it's important that you understand that visual that I showed earlier of the internet connected chains. Osmosis is its own blockchain with its own token, but it also contains tokens which come from other networks. So you can see each of these tokens has got a chain, Matic, Polygon. So a lot of these are from Ethereum. They've been bridged with an Ethereum bridge. But then you get other native Cosmos assets, so like Akash, Fetch AI. They are their own chain, just like Osmosis. And I can deposit from their chain to Osmosis. And once it's on Osmosis, it's got its own fungibility. So it has to be synced back to Fetch in order to be used on the Fetch chain. But once it's been synced over, you're able to swap. So let me give an example of that. I've got...
So when you click deposit, does deposit mean, you did that earlier, does that mean to transfer the token cross-chain over to Osmosis?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
I could show my other accounts, my personal account, to do a deposit.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I just don't want to give away personal.
Yeah.
Don't ever show your crypto.
Yeah.
But I'll show a withdrawal and then I'll show a deposit in that order.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
First, I want to swap Osmo to Atom. Now, I want to. Yeah. Firstly, I'm going to swap half, which is just over $1. We can see once we enter an amount, you can click on this little arrow. It'll give you a breakdown of the price impact, the swap fees, what you expect to get out, and also the route. We've got quite an involved routing backend, which will optimize the capital efficiency of your swap. So if you're swapping some bigger assets, like bigger amounts, there might be 2 liquidity pools that it might choose to split the swap in order to minimize the price impact due to slippage. So I'm going to do a swap, and Kepler pops up, and we can verify very easily the exact data. If you want to get technical, I always tell users, make sure you understand what you're reading before you approve a transaction. And transaction fee defaults to Osmo. You can, on Osmosis, choose to pay with other fee tokens. Okay. At the moment, I don't have them in balance, which is why it's only showing Osmo. But in a second, once we swap to Atom, you will see. So,
okay.
Yeah, approve that.
Are those approved by governance? Which tokens are allowed for fee payment?
Yes, so there's certain requirements. One of the requirements is that there is a minimum. There needs to be a pool, a liquidity pool with Osmo and that other token. So, for instance, with Atom, there's a pool with Atom and Osmo, and it's above a certain amount of liquidity. I think it's about $100,000. And there's also like a 30-day kind of cooldown period, so that they want the pool to know that the liquidity is going to be there for a while, not just any token coming can be a fee token. And yeah, and that is also approved by governance, but there are those ground rules in place.
Okay.
So now we've made a swap. You can see my Atom, and now I want to withdraw. But remember, we're not on the Cosmos Hub chain. We're still on Osmosis. So the transaction we're going to do now to withdraw is on the Osmosis network. All right. First things first, I need to approve transactions with Cosmos Hub. And the reason why it's doing this is so that it can read my wallet address for Cosmos Hub. It's defaulting it from Kepler. So in Kepler wallet, you can see your addresses by clicking copy address. And you can see if I type in Osmo, I can get my Osmosis address as well as my Cosmos Hub address and any other chain that you have within IBC Greater Ecosystem. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the max available Atom, and I'm going to withdraw that Atom to my Cosmos account.
Okay. So you just swapped Osmosis coin Osmo to Atom, and now you're withdrawing Atom from the Osmosis chain to the main Cosmos chain, Cosmos Hub.
It's one of the it's the Cosmos Hub is the first Cosmos chain. But the great thing about the ecosystem is there's no main chain. There's no central hub.
Okay.
If anything, it's debatable and maybe biased, but Osmosis would be one of the economic hubs, you can say.
Okay. In terms of liquidity and connections, IBC connections,
100%.
And all that?
It's one of the most, if not the most active every day for the last 2 years. So now that I've got Atom on Osmosis, I can choose that as a gas fee token. So what happens is sometimes users will onboard an asset to Osmosis and not have the Osmo token.
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
They will then be able to maybe withdraw from Binance, get some Atom, send it to Osmosis, and immediately be able to swap for something else.
All right. So essentially there is still, because this is one of the classic UX issues in terms of fee tokens, there is still the issue if I now deposit from some other chain, let's say from ETH, I deposit ETH or I send cross-chain ETH to Osmosis, I still can't make a transaction because I don't have a fee token, right?
Yeah. Now, this was a big problem. It's a big problem. But it's something that's been remedied. One of our validators is quite active in the community too. They created a module on the Osmosis chain. They contributed because it's all open source. And that fee module, I think it's called the fee grant module or something, that allows other tokens to be used on Osmosis. And now that same module has been used on other chains in Cosmos-Ökosystem too. Right, so a lot of things have been developed specifically or first for Osmosis, has been adopted in other parts of the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah. And what tokens are currently allowed? Are you allowing coins from, let's say, major liquidity hubs like Ethereum? Are you allowing, for example, ETH or something?
Yes. So most of these tokens listed here will be available. There is a list which is available through our docs. Any questions users might have, you can go to, we've got I'm from the Osmosis Support Lab, which is support.osmosis.zone. And you can actually find that down here if you click on more and then go to Support Lab. It'll open up our support page where you can speak to one of our live agents such as myself, and we'll be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We can assist you with any questions you might have. It's private, just with us. So it's not like asking a question on a Telegram group or on Twitter where there's thousands of scammers. And we have quick support, which rivals many DEX and so just add that.
Okay.
And any other questions, if users have, they can go to the documentation site. And on this doc site, we have an AI widget, and you can ask any question in any language.
Great.
I had a French user yesterday who had a question, and I was like, do I go to Google Translate everything? And it was a very open-ended question, so I just redirected them here, said, ask the question in French, and it gave me, it knows our knowledge base and knows all the code for developers or for basic users. So that's a really great feature that we have.
That's really great. We'll put these links into the show notes. I like how you're making things easy for users, that little AI tool and all that. That's good.
Yeah. So now that we have Atom, let me just do a quick withdrawal. And one thing to note is because maybe I've just onboarded Atom and I don't have Osmo, you'll be tempted to maybe select your entire balance of Atom. However, keep in mind you need to keep some for the gas fee, the transaction fee. And you can see that in the preview, the transaction preview that pops up. So let me just select that Atom. It's a very small amount, 0.00. So I'm just going to say 0.01. And I'm going to keep that behind. Let's draw Atom. Prove the transaction. Now, RBC transactions are a few transactions in one. Similar to how the internet works when I've got a laptop and I'm connecting to a web server, the web server replies. It's very similar with these RBC transactions. It's not like a normal send. A normal send transaction from my Osmo address to your Osmo address is one transaction and it's finalized on chain. As soon as it gets approved, it's already in your wallet with a finality. But with RBC, I can actually show you an example here. I'm going to copy over my Osmo address. I'm going to head over to a block explorer, such as MintScan, and I'm going to paste my wallet address. And here you'll see a representation on chain that's being indexed of your current your wallet. There's still some residual atom, which is a good sign. It means that the other atoms have already gone through. If I scroll down, I'll be able to see the RBC transfer. You can also do some filters, specific transaction types. There's a whole bunch, but to keep things simple, this is the RBC transfer. If I click on it, I know we're going into a bit of detail here, but you can see the sender, the receiver, and a few more RBC-specific things. Now, this is it's good to know. I wouldn't say it's that important because it works 99.999% of the time. You'll have your initial transfer. This is the user transaction, the one that I approved, which is on the Osmosis channel. Then you have a received transaction on the Cosmos hub, the specific chain, which is a transaction which is a forwarding of a packet to say, hey, it's been received on this chain. We are now going to unlock that atom to be available on that network. And that transaction is done by an IBC relayer, which can be anyone in public, similar to a miner on Bitcoin or anything like that. And then Osmosis acknowledges that it's been received on that end. If at any point in time this RBC transfer fails, for example, we had a new chain onboarding 2 weeks ago, and there was quite a rapid amount of users onboarding. I think at one point we had about 5,000 incoming transfers, and there were no relayers set up initially. So everyone was trying to send the tokens from Binance to Osmosis, and it was like one poor RBC relayer. And over time, more relays were spun up. But for quite a half an hour or so, there was quite a large number of these transactions pending. And we can also see that if we go to our relays. So now I'm within the context of Osmosis still, and I'm going to click on Cosmos Hub, and I'm going to click on the currently active channel. And the way I like to explain this is, okay, here we can see we've got 2 pending transactions on Osmosis, which are being withdrawn to Cosmos. Sometimes you might have a very new chain that comes along that haven't really these fly-by-nights, because Cosmos-Ökosystem is permissionless. I can use the Cosmos SDK, create my own blockchain very easily, create a token, establish this relay connection, and send tokens to Osmosis to trade. However, it's very important that users do their own research, find out who are the developers, the founders, and the people behind these projects. Because when you send transfer tokens from a source chain to Osmosis, and something happens to that chain can stop development, they can turn off their validators, and effectively you can have tokens which are now isolated on Osmosis. The good thing about having these multiple chains is that if something happens specifically on one chain, it doesn't affect the entire ecosystem. I think the ethos is to rather have security and make sure that things are going to run the way they should. Whereas if you look at, say, Ethereum, you've got everything on one chain. One project can go absolutely crazy, like was it CryptoKitties or something, and completely flood the memory pool, and your gas price skyrockets. With Osmosis, you have different islands, different blockchains, and they each have their own validator seats, and they each have their own block time, which I showed earlier.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the risk that remains is just, as you mentioned, kind of like the yeah, I don't know what you want to call it, liquidity risk. I mean, like you had with Terra Luna. So if that coin, that ecosystem loses all its value, or like you said, maybe the relayers are dropped and you can't bridge it back to the source chain, then that can affect another ecosystem, right?
Yeah, and that reminds me, there are certain security features which are being added to several of these Cosmos chains, including Osmosis, where you have massive transfers of tokens. So you might not know that maybe there's some bridge exploit, for example. But with Osmosis, we can, or a chain that it comes from, can limit the IBC outflows over a certain period of time. They might have a time limit for a certain amount. So let's say $10 million within a minute. That might be suspicious, or maybe 100 million within an hour or something. And they can then kind of put a cap. I think Yumi is one of those chains that does that. They are also a lending and borrowing protocol. So I want to just give a bit more overview of Osmosis. We've got not only functionality within the Osmosis site, but we've also got a few other extended projects that have added value to the Osmosis ecosystem. Two of them are linked on the side here. We've got Mars protocol, which offers some margin lending and borrowing, and we've got perpetuals offered by Nirvana. I'm not going to showcase those, but they are really absolutely cool. Maybe I will. But if you look at our apps, we have an apps page which showcases a lot of these. Some really groundbreaking, new, I would say, concepts, which I don't think have been seen anywhere else before. There's a thing called stream swap, which maybe I want to swap over time. So I say I've got 100 Osmo and I want to slowly swap it over the course of a week to Atom. I can do that. You can also use, they also created Stream Pay, this project, which allows you to, maybe you run a DAO and you have got employees and you want to maybe pay them not once a month, but over a course of a month. You can say, okay, their salary is $5,000 in USDC, and I want to give them that every block. Every block, I want to break that down. And some people have done airdrops this way. In fact, Omniflix has done so.
Okay. So you could essentially do DCA trades, dollar cost averaging, and also pay out salaries periodically.
Right? Yes. We've got calculated finance, which actually does DCA. I'm just quickly going to showcase them. They've got different strategies. The main initial one is the dollar cost averaging. You can choose specific tokens that you want and dollar cost averaging to multiple tokens. And as you can see, it says swapped on Osmosis. So they've integrated a smart contract, and their own interface, which can utilize Osmosis as a protocol. So users don't even need to go to Osmosis. They can, under the hood, Osmosis is doing the heavy lifting. And that's one of the great things about the IBC user experience, the UX, is as time goes on, more and more integration happens, and we've kind of made it a lot easier with these smart contracts, that we can have a Osmosis, what they call outpost. So you can have your own site, and you can have just an Osmosis pop-up that you can swap or customize it to your smart contract. In Kepler Wallet, we have a swap feature where you can actually swap any token to any other token on Osmosis, but from any chain. So you don't even have to send it to Osmosis. Kepler Wallet will actually do the swap in the back end for you. It actually sends your say, for in this example, your Atom to Osmosis with the instruction, please swap it for AKT at the specific allowed rate, and then send it back to my AKT wallet, my AKT address. And they call it an IBC swap.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's really a step forward for kind of user experience where you don't have to care too much about what's happening on what chain. That is kind of abstracted away into the background. Yeah. Just a quick question. For example, that DCA app you just showed. So this smart contract, this application, does it exist on Osmosis itself? That
Yes.
one, for example?
Yes. Yeah. So they have a smart contract which has been permissioned by Osmosis governance when they uploaded their own proposal with the code for the smart contract.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you can actually interact with them if their website goes down. If you've put in an order to DCA, and now for some reason this website goes down, you can still cancel whatever that contract has provided for end users, which undoubtedly they are already doing because they have integrated with their own front end. So that is definitely possible. And in fact, there was a project which created a limit order very early on, and they were paid and they made this great smart contract. It works perfectly. However, their front end hosting went down and users are unable to cancel their orders. So we quickly spun up a simple website, a decentralized app, which interacts on the back end with that smart contract, allowing users to see their current orders and to be able to cancel them. So it's very easy to extend and replace front ends, even the Osmosis front end with the swap, the assets. All of this can be done via a third-party front end, although obviously we recommend users verify where they are trading.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So on the Osmosis main page, you've got Pro Trading at the top. If you go there, it takes you to a third party called TFM. And TFM has done a really great job with the order book. They're also running a smart contract or a few smart contracts that automates the order book features. So you connect your Osmosis wallet with Kepler or any of these. We also have a mobile wallet, by the way, which connects with a whole bunch of sites with Wallet Connect. I'm just approving the transaction. Okay. Here we go. So I can see my balance now connected on Osmosis. Let's say 3. I want to do a limit order. Give it a second. I want to buy, I want to sell it for USDC at the specific price. Just make it a bit more so I can get a profit. And I can set an expiry, which is also a good thing. Remember, if a front end goes down, at least a small contract will revert, cancel the order. And I can create a limit order. Let me do that now. So I'm going to sign the transaction. Again, here's the contract. And you can go into details if you're a more technical user. Pretty simple to understand if you just to verify the numbers. That's the important thing.
Okay.
Block time is about 5 to 7 seconds. Go pending, transaction completed. And there you can see my order. I think my screen resolution's a bit weird.
Yeah.
There we go. And here's the order. I can cancel that. Trade history.
So how should we think about this? So this appears to me, first of all, it looks like a classic order book exchange to me. So is that like a order book decentralized exchange? Are these orders themselves, like that active order you just put, is that like on chain or what happens there?
So that is a TFM smart contract that is operating that limit order. However, the primary, I'd say, focus or key part of the liquidity that runs this is the pools on Osmosis. So at the moment, if you look at our pools, let's go back here. So let me go to our pools page. So you can see a whole lot of pools, there's different types of pools too. I'd like to briefly talk about that. So you've got your typical balancer type of pools, and then you've got stable swap pools, and you've got supercharged pools, which are concentrated liquidity. Your typical weighted classic pools, balancer type, is this token is the ratio to this token, 50-50. Then you've got your stable swap pools, which are two similar tokens, so like USDC from one provider and from another provider. Maybe you want to peg those exactly 1-to-1, or you've got a liquid staking derivative token like Atom and staked Atom, and they have a peg within a certain threshold that can be programmed when the user creates that pool. But the one I would really love to highlight is the concentrated liquidity, which Osmosis has termed the supercharged liquidity. There's a lot of supers in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
And just for the sake of an example, okay, I created this account 3 days ago. Soon after Tier was listed. I put just under $1,000, $990 onto this demo account. What you see here, just by this visualization, is that we have the price over time, and on the right we have the liquidity depth. So what I'm able to do is not just add the two tokens and let the pool decide the ratio on those tokens. I can concentrate my liquidity. I can say, I want to create a position in this pool, and I want to focus my liquidity to be within a certain range, a moderate position or a more aggressive one. So the tighter you go, the more concentrated your liquidity will be. And what this does is it will incentivize deeper liquidity within a price range. So larger trades can actually execute without a large price impact due to slowing. And a bonus to that, obviously you've got to incentivize users to do that, is they're focusing their rewards. So pools will earn swap fees, which go to the liquidity providers, as well as potential for other rewards. So a project like Tier might decide to incentivize a specific pool with Tier rewards. In this case, I'll show you exactly what's been happening with this pool over the last 3 days. I've got a position here. My range is set, and it's got a 3% return on investment. So down here, my unclaimed rewards are about $32. And if you do the math, it's about a 3% profit, which works out to just over 100% APR, 300% APR, something ridiculous. And the reason why I chose this pool specifically is because it seems to have a fairly stable range over the last week, as you can see here. But if one thing to note about this type of pool is if the price goes out of your range, as the price goes up towards your upper bounds of your pool's range, one of the tokens will be swapped into the other. So as soon as it reaches that limit, you will have 100% of one token and 0% of the other. You'll have none of the more expensive token, the one that went up in.
Okay,
yeah. So if this goes up, I'll have 0 Tier and 100% USDC. So you could use it as kind of like a auto DCA selling or buying. But if you don't want to actively manage this, and if you're afraid that you're going to go out of range, and by the way, going out of range also means that you won't earn swap rewards. So if it's trading at a price above or below your current range that you've set, you won't get any rewards. You can select passive, and passive will give you a full range, just like a traditional liquidity pool. You won't earn as many rewards, but there's talk about possibility of changing the reward structure that will reward users that have been in the pool for a certain period of time. for an active range. So you might be greedy and take the very tightest range, which might be good for the liquidity provider, but not good for traders. If the price changes, there will be no liquidity in the new price because it's been priced out. All that liquidity is sitting in one thin area. So what we want to try and do is create a incentive. We want to try and incentivize creating wider liquidity, but within a certain balance, because every token pair is different. It's got its own nature, you can say. Some of them are more volatile than others. Some of them might be stables. So the more you know your assets and your tokens, the clearer you can define your strategies and profit from that. If you don't want to, if this scares you, don't worry. They also have managed systems. So we have a provider called Quasar. In this example, they're the first one. They have a dynamic vault, which you can then, it opens up their site. And I can connect my Kepler wallet. Once again, they're running their own blockchain. I can RBC transfer from Osmosis to them. And I can fund an account, fund a vault. And what they will do is they have their own bot, which will automatically adjust the range as soon as it goes out of range. They'll also auto-compound those rewards, leaving users with a slightly higher APR than if they try to manage it themselves, maybe unsuccessfully.
Okay, that's interesting. So you kind of have different offers depending on how involved and professional your users are.
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything for everyone. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed that demo that I gave. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to click on the support link in the more at the bottom of the Osmosis main app. And one of our friendly agents will assist you with any questions you might have. We're all new to this at some point, so we're there to guide you and to give you all the information that you need.
Right. Thank you for that. That was very insightful. I'm impressed at the range of features that are made possible through those interfaces, depending on how involved, how professional someone is in that already. Because some of it is quite niche, I think, not for the broad audience, but at the same time, you can go with something more simple as well in terms of providing liquidity and all that. So, for example, from the order book look of the offer you had, and just in general, Osmosis is a decentralized exchange. We're in a bear market. There's a liquidity crunch. How does Osmosis kind of like compete with the user experience and liquidity of centralized exchanges? Is that something that is at the forefront of the ecosystem, like what you're thinking about, or is that sort of like not really a main concern?
So one of the objectives or visions that Osmosis has is to basically rival centralized exchanges, to offer everything they offer and do it better. Not your keys, not your crypto. We see it time and time again, exchanges getting hacked, insider trading, FTX. This stuff happens, and there you have regulators that are scrutinizing these exchanges, and it still happens. Whereas with Osmosis and blockchain in general, you do have you're cutting out the middleman. I don't have to say this. We all understand crypto. But because exchanges take exorbitant fees, and they don't give that necessarily to the users, with Osmosis, projects that onboard onto Osmosis have the ability to incentivize, maybe with their own token or with the Osmo token, and also the fees that come back with the swaps can be distributed to this LP providers. But also, I failed to mention this earlier, but because we proof of stake our token Osmo, you can stake that natively in Kepler wallet, and you can earn a APR which is higher than the actual inflation rate of the emitted Osmo into circulation.
Okay. And in terms of the token and token value sort of, and the game theory around it all, how do you think about liquidity incentives and token value accrual in terms of, for example, indexes tend to incentivize liquidity, obviously. So you pay out like tokens, rewards for liquidity providers to attract liquidity, to make the liquidity pool deeper, and the DEX works more efficiently. But at the same time, this can mean that it dilutes value of the token because you're putting so much supply out there on the market of it. So there's this sort of issue there. And for example, on the other side of the equation, when you think about token utility, you have, for example, the fee model. You're limiting yourself. So you're saying, okay, the use case of Osmo will not be as the solitary fee token in order to improve user experience on the platform. But that also means that you're sort of cannibalizing part of the revenue model that aggregates directly to the token Osmo. And that, in general, the Osmo token is important for governance as well. So generally, you'd want to have it not like lose value. Maybe it could jeopardize governance in some way if that would happen. Just in terms of these sort of mechanics, how do you think about token value and liquidity incentives and having like a sustainable ecosystem?
So I can give my personal opinion based on the experience I've had over the last 2 years. At first, with the initial tokenomics model that we've had, it's been revised within this last year. We have a third inning schedule. So like Bitcoin's halving, we have a third inning, so it reduces by 33% every year, once a year. However, this year we've cut that even further. I think we fast-tracked to make the last halving about a half, I believe, just over a half. So it's creating less inflation right at this moment. And we also kind of shuffle around the allocation of the token minting. So we have a fixed supply of 1 billion. And we had an airdrop, which was, I think, under 10%, if I'm not mistaken. 25% or something was going to the community pool, and 25% was going to the developers and the strategic reserve. And now that's been adjusted a bit. More incentives are going to actual staking and LP providers, and less going to the community pool. So it's actually been circulated. And obviously, this creates sell pressure on the Osmo token, right? But that was the initial concept, was to create, to have Osmo fulfill its first purpose, which was to encourage utilizing the DEX, with the incentives. And this has been clear from the start. I believe anyone who invests in anything should check out the tokenomics. And this was talked about on blogs and podcasts with the founders. But more recently, they are built into the Osmosis protocol. We're trying to encourage more stable paired assets. So not really trying to encourage them to be paired only with Osmosis. So like, for instance, this tier pool, tier and USDC, we might have a lower fee for that specific pool. But at the same time, any pool that has an Osmo pair might have a reduced fee. So, and those Osmo pools, say if you have a swap that spans across multiple pools, so it routes from pool A to pool B to pool C, and then you get your C token out. If it's got Osmo pairs, so if those are Osmo-based pools, then the fee will be reduced across that route. So that's another little thing. Just trying to think. There's so much going on in the ecosystem lately. There's on our blog, on our forum. Users might want to see what's being discussed and talked about. You've got some really bright minds in this space who contribute a lot to our governance, as well as our model of our incentives, the economics, and basically we want to create a win-win-win for the traders, for the liquidity providers, and for those who are wanting to onboard onto the ecosystem, either as a developer or to integrate.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance to strike for sure. Good to hear that you guys and the ecosystem of Osmosis is actively thinking about that. Sweet. I mean, Jason, I think we dived into a lot of topics here. I think we're over an hour at this stage, and I learned a lot about Osmosis. Thank you for sharing your screen as well and showing us all the different features and how to use them. I think that'll be very useful to people watching. We'll include all the links in the show notes so people can get started if they like. And thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.